So this was your first real creative writing project in a while. And like you said, you'd been doing a lot of different reading about different eras.
Mhm.
And so you said that research-wise, it kind of, you were like, oh, this is an interesting time. Was it that finding the specific point in history that was really interesting to you that said, okay, this is the project I'm going to work on? Or were you more drawn to, tropes or the characters that you were inspired by? I'm curious, like, what really ultimately made you be like, this is the story I'm going to write?
I think actually Hannah came to me first. Hannah
Hmm.
really was like fully formed. And somehow, even though it wasn't her story, I just knew it wasn't her story, but I I just had this sense of this group of women, and it kind of came out of that, I think, more than anything. The idea that the structure of the Women's Land Army being available at that time period to me, I think really settled me on that. I was like, okay, this has a whole bunch of things that I'm interested in. There's kind of fruitful pieces of this that I can use to examine how somebody might act in this situation or what the challenges might be for a woman like Ophelia in this situation.
So, what brought you into historical romance? And are there specific authors that are your influences, you would say?
Yeah, I mean, I, like so many people, started reading it during COVID, and someone in my social media world was talking about Evie Dunmore's Bringing Down the Duke. And so that was the first one that I ever read. And I just, yeah, it sounds so silly when I say it, but it just like completely rearranged my brain. Like I had really grown up kind of in a house, like I say, it's sort of like accidental purity culture. Romance was really frowned on, and it was not a thing that I was kind of exposed to at all. And then, being in academics, it was kind of like also there's a lot of prejudice against genre literature. And so I just really was unfamiliar with it. And when I read that book, it was so compelling to me. It was like all the things that I loved in one form, and the sense of it being so enjoyable was just, yeah, it was really a profound shift. And I loved that. I think the thing, growing up, I can look back now and see that the things that I really loved and the books I really loved were kind of like, there were a lot of historical things that I read, the Mary Stuart series of the Arthurian books, and like a lot of things like that. And there was always just this part of me that wanted like a tiny bit more romance. Like I wanted them to kiss each other or whatever. And I just really didn't know that was a thing that was available. And so I think when I first read Bringing Down the Duke, it was like so beautifully written, these really interesting characters, this like all this romance, and then also this really like astute commentary on feminism and an examination of like how that looks in that time period, but also like really telescoping to what we're looking at right now too. And so that was kind of the beginning. And then I think the next one I read was A Rogue by Any Other Name. So I read through all Sarah MacLean's. I read a bunch of Eva Leigh, which I just loved. I read some Tessa Dare. I read Outlander. Not all of them. I think the first three books. And then I kind of just like, I found like Courtney Milan, and I found KJ Charles. And like, it seemed like once you kind of started looking for them, then it was just kind of like finding this community. And I think that has been just like the biggest gift. I really has been incredible, just the amount of thought and care that people put into their scholarship about it or their reviews. I'm so glad that I found it, honestly.
I'm glad you found it too. And now you're writing amazing stories.
Yeah, well, trying my hand at it.